Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this second talks on this One World seminar series on imaging and inverse problems. Before I introduce the speaker, I would like to remind the audience that if you have questions, please click the raise hand button, and then at the end of the talk, we will unmute you, and then you can ask the question yourself directly to the speaker. So now let me introduce the speaker. Our speaker today is Professor Jin Keun Seo. He's a professor at Yonsei University in South Korea. He is also currently the director of the BK21 Plus Center on Computational Science and Engineering. Professor Seo is one of the pioneers working in magnetic resonance electrical impedance tomography. He is also the author of two books, one in nonlinear inverse problem in imaging, and the other one in electromagnetic MRI. He was one of the speakers in ICM in 2015 at Beijing. Today, he will talk about deep learning-based solvability of underdetermined inverse problems in medical imaging. Jin Keun.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation. In this talk, we discuss about the deep learning-based solvability of the underdetermined inverse problems. Okay, this talk is based on the joint work with my PhD student, Hyun Chang-min, and Baek Sung-hyun, Lee Min-gyu, and Lee Sung-min. Okay, in medical imaging, for example, CT and MRI, we want to provide high-resolution medical images while optimizing data collection in terms of the minimal acquisition time and cost-effectiveness, low invasiveness. The willingness to provide high-resolution images with as little data as possible leads to the ill-posed inverse problem in the classical sense. Okay, let us explain the ill-posed inverse problems. Hadamard explained that one. System AY is equal to B is well-posed if solution exists and that has a unique solution and that has a stability. But in this code, we deal with the ill-posed linear system like this. Number of rows are much less than number of columns. Here, Y is the CT or MRI medical images, and B denotes the measured data. A is the corresponding forward matrix. In the CT case, radon transform, and MRI case, Fourier transform. The goal is to find the reconstruction map. Either map is B to Y, or this one is a pseudo inverse of the A, or B times 2Y. So you try to find this reconstruction map. In the classical sense, conventional CT, computerized tomography, MRI data collections are designed to ensure the corresponding system is well posed. That means that you take the fully sampled data, let us denote it by B full, and corresponding matrix, it should be invertible. So to do that, number of equation is the number of row, number of unknowns is number of columns, should be same. The number of unknown is the number of pixel of the images. In the classical MRI, artifact-free reconstruction requires the Nyquist sampling in K-space. The Nyquist sampling rate means sufficient condition for sample rate that permits the sample data to provide a perfect reconstruction. So MRI measures the approximately images of Fourier transform. This is Fourier transform. And here, number of pixels in the image is approximately same as the number of sampling in the K-space with a Nyquist sampling rate. The violation of this Nyquist sampling results in the imperfect reconstruction that produces the aliasing artifact. Here, in this case, in order to generate this, you need a full sampling, And then here, a full is the kind of the Fourier transform. So you're taking an inverse Fourier transform of the fully sampled data gives the correct images. That's the classical MRI. Computerized tomography with Nyquist sampling is this. CT measures the approximately images radon transform. Actually, this is X-ray beam is shooting in this direction, and this one is the radon transform of this one. The analytic reconstruction requires square root of the pixels of the image is approximately the same as the projection angle. How many angle is the projection angle, and how many detector, the number of detector. That's the Nyquist sampling. With this, if we're taking a inverse of radon transform, that is called the filtered back projection, produced these images. That's in the CT. Then, why do we pay attention to the undersampled problem in CT MRI? Undersampled problem is a fewer location than unknowns. It is because great needs to reduce the radiation dose in CT and the data acquisition time in MRI. To reduce the radiation dose and to reduce the data acquisition time in MRI, you need to reduce the number of measurements. Not this. You try to cut it out. So you use the subsampled data, but you try to maintain the high resolution image. That leads to the undersampled problem. The goal is to reduce the measurement data as much as possible while maintaining a high resolution images to reduce the radiation dose in CT, data acquisition time in MRI. So goal is to make the number of equation over number of unknown or number of rows over number of columns as small as possible. That's the goal. So I say again, goal is to find the reconstruction map. Okay, this F is the reconstruction map to a pseudo inverse of the B to Y. Y is like here, B is the subsampling. Let us denote the subsampling operator, subsample the data, where S sub denotes subsampling operator. But you try to reconstruct Y is the high resolution image. Here, B full denotes the fully sampled data. That's a sinogram in CT, the case-based data in MRI. So even if the B is a small part of the portion of the B full, we hope to reconstruct the same quality image that is obtained from the full sampled data. That is our goal. For example, first example is the sparse view CT. Actually, if we have a full sampled, if we directly filtered back projection algorithm, that's the A full inverse, you can get the nice images. But the need of the reduction of the radiation dose, you need to just and few data in the subsampled data. If we have a subsampled data, if we take the pseudo inverse, you have this type of artifact image. The goal is to get this image, the artifact, the denoising. That's the goal. And the second, the local CT is that instead of taking all this thing, you just take this portion of it, using the portion of the X-ray data. And if you do just the pseudo inverse, you have this type of image. The question is that local CT problem question is that, can you reconstruct this from this? That's the question. In the MRI cases, demand for the undersampled MRI is because of long scan time with the human body trapped in the inconvenient narrow bore. So scan time is depending on the number of phase encoding line. So you try to reduce hours so that people are working on the random sampling, but let us do this uniform sampling in these cases. And then in order to reduce the sampling time, you violate the Nyquist sampling rate. Then if we take the pseudo inverse, if you do the uniform subsampling, you have this type of wrapped image. Then from this, can you get this one? That's the question. That's the undersampled MRI. Okay, let us explain the undersampled MRI problem more precisely. We attempt to find this map, reconstruction map. B is undersampled data, A is a pseudo inverse. Then you have this type of artifact images. Then you try to find the image, reconstruct the image Y that is close to the MR image corresponding to the fully sampled data. That's the goal. Here, this is only 30% of the data. This is a full sample data. Okay, then how to solve this problem? Actually, it's impossible in the classical sense. This problem has infinitely many solutions if there is no constraint on the solution. This is all possible solution. Dimension of the solution is like this. Dimension of solution is the number of column minus number of row. So this is this image is 256 times 266. That times 0.7 is the dimension of the solution. So question is that how can you extract the correct solution out of the infinitely many solutions? That's the question. So here, without using a constraint, it is impossible to find this. So you need to consider the constraint problems. So you need to solve undersampled, highly undersampled problem subject to the constraint. Constraint, let me say constraint the solution manifold. So we hope solution manifold is less than number of rows, but unfortunately, this manifold is unknown. That's the problem. The example of the sparse BOCT, if you directly do the pseudo inverse, you have this type of artifact image. That is not line the solution manifold. You try to move to this one, but this one is only one is the solution manifold. How can you find it? Then how can you find this constraint? That's the key issue of it. And last 30 years, many people use that one to compensate the uncertainty of the huge number of free parameter. You need to limit the solution manifold using the prior information. This is very complicated word. Prior information of the expected images. So that means that you need to shrink the solution space, solution manifold. You need the dimensionality reduction. So people use the linear regression using the PCA or truncated Fourier transform or wavelet framenet. This is the linear approach. And I say this is a semi-linear approach and sparse sensing. That's the total variation and dictionary learning and the sparse representation using wavelet and framelet. And the non-linear is the deep learning approach. This is learning this approach. So let us compare which one is better. The comparison regularized data fitting. This is traditional method and the deep learning method is new method. Let us compare. I don't know, this is a fair comparison. I use the sparse BOCT. Sparse BOCT is this artifact. Usually total variation, the other method is working very well. That's the reason why I use the sparse BOCT. So question is that can you find this map? I think this one is reasonably fair to compare the regularized data fitting versus deep learning. Okay. The last time Chambord talked about total variation, he is expert this, and I'm not expert this area. And the total variation method is that the two term. This is the data fidelity and the regularized term. And the lambda is a regular parameter that controls the trade-off between the data fidelity and the regularity enforcing the sparsity. This is the total variation. Actually, this one is very, very successful last 20 years. And also using the wavelet or framelet, this W is some kind of the basis or some dictionary. You impose the sparsity on here H, and then you reconstruct. This is a sparse expression. Here also data fidelity, and here is the image prior using the regularization. This is sparse expression. And also this one is a very, very successful last 20 years. Deep learning approach is just maybe less than 4 or 5 years old, the baby stage actually. Here, this is a completely different paradigm. Okay, here CS approach converts the ill-posed problem to well-posed one by effectively shrinking the domain of the solution using Banach space norm to enforce the sparsity. This used the, here I emphasize single fidelity. But deep learning is a completely different paradigm. It used the group fidelity. Here, this one is a group fidelity to learn the reconstruction map from the training data. They learn the reconstruction map, and then you put in the input data and reconstructs. That's the deep learning approach. So these two approaches are completely different paradigm. So to compare the test data, and I used this type of test, special test data. Okay, test data here. Performance evaluation check whether remove the noise. There is a lot of noises here while preserving the two features. Feature one is the this type of streaking one. Feature two is this circle. Maybe this is unfair for. But anyway, I used this unfair comparison in terms. Okay, here this okay about the manifold. This is actually 7-dimensional manifold. So if we know that this manifold, you can also solve this underdetermined problem. Manifold is described by this one. This is generator, and H is the latent space. This is K. H is this 3-term. Okay, this 3-term. Okay, here. This 3-1 is the center and radius, and this one is the center radius. Remaining is to take care of this value. So this is 7-dimensional manifold. Okay, and actually this manifold is unknown, except the person who created this manifold. It may be almost impossible to figure out the formula of this manifold, because this formula is this is a dual of the Radon transform and the least principal degree -1 and the log, and it's complicated. So except the person who created this manifold, it is impossible to know. Anyway, under this condition, anyway, this problem is well posed if you know that this manifold. So using this database test data, you try to compare. Okay, this is a comparison. This is the input data. Okay, this is a linear approach, PCA, and the truncated Fourier, and the Hall wavelet. And PCA completely destroy the image. Fourier also destroy. Actually, this is basis 800 basis. And the total variation and Dobach wavelet is looks better, but somehow maybe this is destroy this one. But deep learning preserved this one very well. So in this example, deep learning is a better performance. I explained the reason. The reason is that PCA produced the terrible outcome due to the use of the insufficient orthogonal basis, just 800. And total variation removes the key feature here, key feature, but deep learning preserved this key feature very well. Okay, why is that? I explained that one. Linear approach may be unable to deal with the highly curved solution manifold. Okay, what do you mean by highly curved? Okay, this one, let me say this is a Y0. Y1 is the pi over 18 degree rotated image. Okay, and then the Y1, Y2, YT. Let's look at this span of this one. And then look at the Y0.5, that is not lined this plane. And then I try to project this one to this plane, and image is like this. So projection to this one is it's like the average of the these images that destroys the main characteristic of the this Y0.5. So because that destroy everything. That's the reason, because this manifold is highly nonlinear, so that cannot preserve very well. So that's the reason why linear method is not successful. And what about the total variation? The total variation removed everything within this interval without exception. Total variation method cannot selectively preserve the feature 1, this feature, while removing the artifact. So not selectively preserve. So remove everything in this interval. That's the problem. That's the reason I destroyed this one, this part. But on the other hand, deep learning approaches selectively preserve the feature. The main reason is the input. They compare the input and output. They look at this feature and then try to preserve. That's the reason why this is deep learning is successful. I will explain why deep learning is successful more precisely. And also I summarized it. Highly underdetermined problem is not linear, highly nonlinear problem. So degree of the nonlinearity depending on the number of sampling of the data and degree of the bending of the solution manifold. This is why it is difficult to solve a highly underdetermined problem by conventional linear and semi-linear approaches. Deep learning technique appears to effectively deal with the limitations of the existing mathematical method in handling highly underdetermined problems. Maybe I overemphasize it. Okay, now, I will explain the deep learning approach to solve underdetermined problem. The goal is to find this map. Okay, first, what is the learnable? What is not? Deep learning is not magic. So there is a learnability there. So necessary condition for learning F is that somehow this type of identity for arbitrary image manifold. But unfortunately, image manifold is unknown. Then how do you know that this manifold using the only training set? Something like a nonlinear regression. Okay, let us simplify the constraint problem. Okay, this manifold, actually this manifold is unknown. To simplify mathematical analysis, we assume that medical image, we want to visualize the near low-dimensional manifold. Here, this is a manifold. And G here is a generator, H is a latent variable, and the K is a compact subset of the latent space. We assume the K is the low dimension, very small, much smaller than the pixels of the image. Okay, for this is an example, and this person did that. This is only two-dimensional manifold. Two-dimensional manifold, they produce the brain MR images. Okay, the goal is to find this map F from, okay, let us call this M prime. M prime is the solution manifold times the matrix A times F is a pseudo inverse is this one, and X is this. Okay, you try to find this map. Okay, okay, here learning impact of the training data. AI performance depends not only architecture of the neural network, so this is a neural network determining the structure of the app, but also training data set. Training data and the architecture both are very important. Okay, first I explained why training data is important. Okay, we did the experiment with Hyung-Seok Park, and here we consider the denoising problem. Okay, here first example, training sample consists of the disk and rectangle, and you try to find the denoising image using the deep learning network. Okay, here look at that. Test image contains the anomaly inside the disk. Here is the anomaly inside the disk. Okay, anomaly inside the disk. But training data does not contain the anomaly inside the disk and rectangle. There is no small anomaly inside the rectangle. So if you did input this here, this F, okay, this trained one, deep learning trained one, F can successfully remove the noise, okay, like this on the test image, but also remove the small disk. Okay, there is no small disk here. They F eliminate the anomaly because training data does not contain the small anomalies here. So this training data is not so good. They also eliminate the anomalies. So that's the reason why training data is important. Second training example is interesting. Second example is the test image contains the anomaly inside of the rectangle, but not in the disk. Inside of the rectangle, there is a small anomaly. But this effort successfully recovered this small anomaly. This is very interesting. So you see training data 1, this completely removed the anomaly. Training data set 2, here is a small anomaly in the rectangle, but disk also preserve that one. Here training data, obviously you can get a good result. So this shows the training data is very important to learn the function F. And also necessary condition for learning is that you need this one. Actually, this one is somehow related with the RIP condition. That okay, this here is a little bit different. MRIP, that's the manifold restricted isometric condition. I just mimicked the Candace and Tao's some isometry. Okay, observation is that reconstruction map is learnable. Learnability is the A satisfy the MRI condition. A, this metric undersampled understand the problem, the matrix A satisfy this identity for all M. Okay, two things, this one, and S condition. This gives a uniqueness and stability. So this data is almost equivalent to this distance. What do you mean by that? This meaning is that the MRIP condition is that solving this underdetermined problem, this one is that all possible solution, huge dimension. And this is a solution manifold. The intersection point, this one must be one, also satisfying some stability. That's the MRIP condition. If something is the problem satisfy MRIP condition, then deep learning is learnable. You can learnable. So I again say deep learning is not magic. Okay. The second one is that why this one is the nonlinear problem. The nonlinear problem is that this one, F is the nonlinear reconstruction. Reconstruction nonlinear if dimension of the span of the this one is bigger than number of rows. That means that what is this? This one is that M image is that generated by this. This is generated latent space, all generated by this, and this is K dimension. Then this one is the tangent vector, all tangent vector of the manifold. Tangent vector, the span of the tangent vector, the dimension of the span of the tangent vector is bigger than number of rows, then reconstruction map is non-linear. Okay, I'll give the proof. Why is that? Okay, this map is you can write this way: F of the A pseudo inverse times A G H is GH, because that this one is because this is Y. Okay, if F is a linear, then gradient should be constant. F is linear, gradient constant. So if we take the gradient with respect to H in the both sides, we have this thing. Okay, so look at that. This one, this is a kind of the tangent vector of this manifold. Tangent vector is the eigenspace. the eigenspace of this one corresponding to the eigenvalue 1. So all tangent vector lie in this eigenspace. Since eigenspace, this dimension is the less than number of row, and this is not possible to the assumption of this assumption. That's the reason. What's the problem? Because I assume that this is linear, then that's you have the contradiction. But proof of this thing shows several things. Why this one is big. That is the degree of the nonlinearity depending on the number of sampling of the B and number of bending of the solution manifold. That's the reason. Okay. Now we test the solvability, whether our theory is correct or not. Okay. Solvability of the sparse view CT. Okay, sparse view. This one to here is F learnable. Okay. Here. Okay, I look at this. Let us check if this is learnable. Let me say this is X, this is Y, and X minus Y is something like this type of the noise structure. So that total variation, you already know total variation working very well to eliminate this type of noise. Total variation here penalize the undesired feature. Okay. That's the reason why if we apply the total variation, somehow you may get this type of image. Then why deep learning working? Also deep learning working very well. Because deep learning approaches somehow learn PD structure very well. The reason is the PD structure is some kind of the low dimensional structure. That's the reason why deep learning working very well, like a total variation. And the next thing is the solvability of the interior CT. Interior CT is from this, can you get this image? Okay. Here, I subtract this. If I subtract the X minus Y, you have this type of image. Interesting thing is that along this vertical direction, vertical line can be represented with this type of thing. This is, and also this one is the analytic. Problem is that this is analytic. Analytic is that somehow you have the unique continuation. The meaning is that small, okay, here is a small, if you know the information is the small local region that completely determine all this thing. That means that this structure is a low dimensional structure. So deep learning learn very low dimensional, that is learn very well. So deep learning works successfully in the interior CT problem. Okay, the last thing, underdetermined MRI. Okay, I use the uniform subsampling data with factor 4. And the random sampling and the Dono method is working very well. Random sampling, Dono and Candesta already explained this method. So let us use the uniformly subsampled data factor 4. Then you have this image. Is F learnable? That's the question. Okay, here, according to the Poisson summation formula, discrete Fourier transform of the uniform subsampled data is that adding this summation, and you have this data. And the fully sampled, you can get this. The question is that, can you get this image from this? Can you learn this one? That's the question. Unfortunately, it is difficult to learn. Look at here. Here, look at here. There is uncertainties there. Two things have the same thing. So this model does not satisfy MRI RIP condition. I already say deep learning is not magic. Is this not learnable? So because of these uncertainties there. So actually, this is a real test using the deep learning. Okay, here is the uniform sampling. Is learning is poor, but if you add the only one phase encoding line, situation is dramatically changed. Adding an additional phase encoding line, situation is dramatically changed. It's working very well. The reason is that this uncertainty is completely removed. There is a signature is there. That's the reason why it's working well. Okay. Then next thing is the many people is talking about this one. Which way of learning is better? If curse of dimensionality does not matter, which one is better? In the full image or patch image, which one is better to learn? Okay, I use the undersampled MRI data. Okay, full image and patch image learning, which one is better? Okay, so let us, this size is the eta. Eta is increasing, is learnability is decreased or increased? I want to check. We did that experiment. Interesting thing is that eta is that this eta is increasing, then you have the better result. Eta is small, then learner does not learn very well. And why is that? I'm thinking about this one. Here, this direction, okay, here, this direction is the eta. And here, this much is unknown. This is a number of unknown. This is number of equation. Eta is increasing, number of unknown is increasing. So it's poor. But problem is different. Manifold, if you look at the manifold is the not much increasing. Here is a solvability. In the below here, not solvable, and here is a solvable. So dimension of the manifold does not increase rapidly. Increase the dimension of manifold behave like this. So the reason why the dimension grows slowly as eta increase is that assume M images set of all human head MR images. Every organ in image in the manifold have a distinct feature that can be represented non-linearly by relatively small number of latent variables. And so does for entire images are spatially interconnected. So that's the reason why inpainting is working. Even if you do not know this part, you do the inpainting because surrounding information provided this one. Hence, even a part of the image is missing part can be recovered with the help of the surrounding image information. That's the reason why dimension of manifold is not increasing. So if curse of dimensionality does not matter, it may be better to learn 3D images in the total rather than dividing 3 images into the multiple pieces. Anyway, this is my personal opinion, but my personal opinion is usually not correct. Okay. Then important question is that what is the minimum ratio of understanding to provide the guarantee of the accurate reconstruction? It is closely related to the dimension of manifold. Then question is that how can nonlinear dimensionality reduction for this image be done? And this is a very, very challenging issue. One of the challenging issue for solving ill-posed problem to find a low-dimensional representation is that how can you represent some, okay, here, this one can be viewed as the latent variable. Using this one, you try to visualize the whole human behavior, okay, as small as this one, as small as possible. And here is a look, this is a decoder or generator or decoder, and this one is called latent variable. Okay, actually, in the images, the size of the image is small, then many people is successful. But in the MRCT image, high dimensional cases, something like 452, 512, 512 type, 400 voxel cases, low dimensional representation is very, very difficult. That's the challenging issue. And our team tested the GAN. GAN is the generative adversarial network, and also use the variation order encoder. But so far, I emphasize so far, my team has tried several kinds of the GANs and variation, but has not succeeded, not successful. Here, okay, you use the auto encoder autoencoder can be viewed as the nonlinear principal component analysis in some sense. And here is the autoencoder. And the autoencoder suffer from image blurring and the loss of small detail. So, so far we are not successful. Maybe the other person may be succeeded, I do not know. And the generative adversarial network, GAN have shown remarkable performance in generating various realistic images. However, there exists some limitation in synthesizing high resolution medical images. Okay, here is the GAN, somehow mode collapse. And here is DC GAN and Wasserstein GAN and PG GAN. And PG GAN is better. But the problem is this. This is also my personal opinion. Autoencoders learns bidirectional mapping. So there is an encoder and decoder. While GANs learns only unidirectional mapping, only decoding, usually somehow using the random noise and the high dimensional medical images. So that if we divide this one, autoencoder can control this latent variable. I can control autoencoder cases. But the high dimensional data, autoencoder suffers from image blurring, loss of small detail. So far, but GAN have the remarkable ability to generate this type of image. But GAN have a difficulty encoding. GAN have you do not control this thing, do not controllability. That is the problem. Okay, this is almost the end of my thing. And so it's a discussion and conclusion. Medical imaging is in fact experiencing paradigm shift due to the marked and rapid advance in deep learning techniques. However, there is a tremendous lack of the rigorous mathematical foundation which allow us to understand the reason why deep learning methods perform that well. Okay. And the regularization technique have been widely used to impose the various specific prior distribution on the expected image, such as penalizing spatial norm of the image or promoting sparsity in expression. However, norm-based regularization might not actually be able to provide clinically useful image property in advance. Well-known compressed sensing methods, which improve random sampling, are based on the regularized method, are effective in alleviating high oscillative noise while maintaining overall structure. But however, sparse sensing technique tend to eliminate a very small anomaly that could be very useful. This part is also this is my opinion. I again say my opinion is usually wrong. And recently, we did several experiments regarding on the adversarial classification, such as false positive output cancer, and have shown that deep learning network is vulnerable to various noise-like perturbation, resulting in the incorrect output that can be critical in the medical invariant. This experiment shows that the well-trained app works only in the immediate vicinity. Okay, this part is the high dimensional. This is the maybe 512 times 512. And maybe this one is the dimension, maybe this manifold dimension is the maybe less than, maybe is the 2000 or 22,000. So this deep learning only works in this immediate vicinity of manifold, where somehow data is around, the input data is here, or in fact this junction part, then you get the wrong result. So if input deviated even slightly from the training data manifold, that produce the incorrect result. That is the problem. So here there is a lot of issue in this deep learning. Okay, I finished a little bit early, so I would like to answer the question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jin Keun. Thank you for a very interesting talk. So now the floor is open to the audience. If you have questions, please raise your hand, and then I will unmute you, and then you can ask the question. So the first one is Professor Vias. So now you can ask the question. So I will unmute you. Yeah, please go ahead. Professor Vias, you can speak now. Hello.
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 Yeah, I can hear you.
With me. So are you going to ask questions? No, if not, then maybe I go to the next one. The next one is. Oh, okay. So go ahead. Go ahead.
सूर्य नमस्कार करू का ही कारण नाही करू मी तर मला काय घेणं नाही.
So I don't know if you can hear it. The sound is breaking off. Yeah. So no. Maybe I ask the second one. Is ND work? So can you? So
can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a fascinating talk. When does the data point lie away from the manifold? Can you discuss that at all? If it only works in the immediate vicinity of the manifold, when would a data point lie, off of the manifold?
Yeah, that one is the challenging issue. I do not know. That is the many people. Okay, how you select the well-distributed data? Actually, some IID condition, you try to data is something like you try to like the good data. So actually, that is the wide open. You do not know the manifold, but data is somehow increase over and over again. Then you may get the manifold in better and better. Actually, I do not know. Unfortunately, that's the big issue. So data point is somehow lying there. If you have a long manifold, then also have the fitting is very bad. So then you have a long result. So that is related with the generalization. Generalization is the very big issue, and all people is working on the problem actually. Yeah.
We have one question. Well, the audience asked whether you will share the slides.
Yeah. I can share. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess well, we can also watch your video again on YouTube, right? So there's a link to this YouTube, so that we all can watch this later on again. Yeah. So there's another question. By Professor Park. So now I unmute Professor Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, Professor Park. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. Thank you for your nice talk. I have one question. So in practice, the medical data is exposed to various noise sources, such as machine-dependent noise. So hence, finding the solution manifold is unclear to me. Do you have any idea about normalization issue of the input data?
Yeah, that's the normalization. Because this is a manifold, there is some is question is the maybe noise is here, and how can you project here? That's the normalization. Normalization is very important to deal with the adversary attack. Maybe very challenging task. So input data normalization, we attempt to project the input. Maybe this could be input to the is normalization form in the way that the two images are almost the same for the from the viewpoint of the radiologist. So for example, given noise data, the its normalization can be denoised image while preserving the salient feature of noise image. But here, the reason is this is a very important thing is here is a look at here, there is a many junction point. And if we put just here, then function f is working all this region. Then here, then you have the wrong result. So first you need to project to this one. Actually, I do not know. Actually, the answer is that that's also big challenging task. Also, the interesting thing is that X-ray image or CT image or MRI image, hospital is different, then image distribution is different. So normalization is the important issue to this one. So normalization is the key issue of the deep learning. Yeah, also recently our team working on the ultrasound, and our university hospital, we have a very, very nice result, 99% correct. But when you use the other hospital, but your accuracy is just 90%, it's decreased. So many people try to develop the normalization. Okay. Anyway, I do not know. Answer is I do not know.
Okay, so we have other questions from the audience. Maybe let me ask a question. So this manifold RIP is very interesting. So, but then, so if we want to use it, I think it's we difficult, right? So because we do not know the manifold, am I correct?
Right. Yeah, manifold is learning by the. Here is my thing is that somehow between you are in the line between them. Autoencoder, you try to learn the manifold, but the autoencoder have a controllability, but you have the suffer from the blurring. Actually, image size is small. Image size is small, then it's autoencoder working very well. And but image size is very big. It does not work. GAN is working very well, but GAN does not controllability. But people is working, I think within 10 years, maybe someone find the good, my hope, within 10 years, someone could find the manifold using the nonlinear framework. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, are there any other questions?
Sure, this is Fadil. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Jin Keun, in many of these experiments, how big was your data set? How many samples?
Our data set is we are using that's also a very big issue, yeah. And data set is now increasing very fast, the CT and MRI cases. And in our hospital, in the Yonsei Hospital, you have the 20,000 data set.
Wow.
This data set is increasing very, very rapidly, not like a human, but I think and 100,000 data set could be enough to generate the manifold. I'm not sure, but it's somehow, but the limitation of a data set, but this in Korea, you try to change the log to get the data set more easily. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, there are currently no publicly available data set that people can use, right?
Yeah. Unidentified. Okay, actually, recently we developed the de-identification. De-identification. Actually, our team is developed the de-identification. So medical images here, then added something. Okay, you have the some only noises, and then you know the network. So is this image is using secret code. You quickly, even if you lose, nobody know who's that one. So you try to make the de-identification technique. It completely change the medical images. So if you use that one, maybe you can get the more medical images.
Very nice.
Actually, we have actually result. It looks like noise, but if you subtract something, you get the real medical images. The coding is only developer know how to solve this code. Yeah. Actually, if you develop that one, then you are more accessible to many data. Then you can get the manifold more accurately. I hope. Yeah.
Thank you.
That is also a big issue. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? If no, then let's thank Jin Keun. So you are midnight now, right? So
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you very much. So our next talk will be on May 6th, Wednesday, at the same time. Hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.